My name is Dr. Lena Park. I'm 32 years old. I'm a physical therapist specializing in spinal cord injury rehabilitation at the Shepherd Center in Atlanta, one of the top facilities in the country for patients learning to walk again. 8 years ago, I was a 24-year-old graduate student, desperate to prove myself. My older sister, Sophie, was a professional ballet dancer with the Pacific Northwest Ballet in Seattle. She was everything my parents wanted in a daughter. Graceful. Accomplished. Visible. I was the quiet one. The one who spent her time in anatomy labs and PT clinics, learning how to put people back together. I wasn't invisible, I was just different. Sophie danced on stages. I worked in basements. My parents loved me. I know they did. But Sophie was the star. And stars, I learned, can burn whoever stands too close. 8 years ago, Sophie fell. And when she fell, she told everyone I pushed her. She didn't. I was 40 feet away. But she told them I did. She told my parents. She told her company. She told her friends. And they believed her. Because why would Sophie lie? Why would the golden daughter, the ballerina, the girl who danced like she was born on a stage, lie about something so devastating? She lied because she was afraid. She lied because the truth was too painful to carry. She lied because she couldn't face what she'd done to herself. And that lie cost me everything. My family. My reputation. My sense of who I was. 8 years later, Sophie was in a car accident that shattered her spine. She was airlifted to my hospital, assigned to my unit, placed in my care. And when my parents saw my name on the door of the physical therapy suite, they didn't recognize it. They didn't know that the daughter they'd thrown away was the only person in the world who could help their favorite child stand again. Before I tell you what happened when I walked into that room, when I saw my sister in a hospital bed with a spine that would never dance again, I need you to understand what happened 8 years ago. I need you to understand the fall. The lie. The silence that followed. If you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do, drop a raised hand in the comments. And tell me where you're watching from. I want to know who else has been the one everyone believed was guilty. Let me take you back. To a studio in Seattle. To a stage that was supposed to be my sister's greatest triumph. To the night everything shattered. I grew up in a house where ballet was religion. My mother, Diane Park, was a former dancer. Not a professional, she'd injured her knee in college and never made it past core level. But she carried ballet with her like a relic. The photographs on our walls weren't of family vacations. They were of dancers. Baryshnikov. Makarova. A signed poster from the Bolshoi that she kept in a glass frame. Sophie was dancing before she could read. 3 years old, in a pink leotard, her hair in a bun so tight it pulled at her temples. My mother saw something in her that she'd lost in herself. Potential. Talent. The chance to live the life she'd been denied. I tried ballet once. When I was 5. My mother put me in a class with Sophie, and the teacher took one look at my flat feet and my stiff posture and said, perhaps she's better suited for something else. That something else became nothing. I wasn't the dancer. I wasn't the artist. I wasn't the one who made people stop and stare. I was the one who watched. Who sat in the back row of recitals, holding my mother's purse, waiting for Sophie to finish her solo so we could go home. My father, James Park, was quieter. A high school physics teacher. He loved Sophie, but he didn't understand her world. He'd come to her performances, sit in the back, applaud when everyone else applauded. He didn't know how to talk about plies and pirouettes. But he knew how to talk about me. About my grades. About my interest in science. About the human body and how it worked. Lena's going to be a doctor, he'd tell people. She's the smart one. And Sophie would smile, and my mother would smile, and everyone would laugh like it was a joke. The smart one. As if being smart was a consolation prize. As if it was something you said about the daughter who couldn't dance. I didn't mind. Or I told myself I didn't mind. I threw myself into school. Into biology. Into anatomy. I learned the names of every bone, every muscle, every nerve. I could look at a body and see how it moved, how it broke, how it healed. I was 14 years old, and I knew I wanted to spend my life putting people back together. Sophie went to a performing arts high school. She was accepted into the Pacific Northwest Ballet's pre-professional program at 16. By 18, she was an apprentice. By 20, she was a member of the Corps de Ballet. By 22, she was a soloist. She was beautiful on stage. There's no other word for it. When Sophie danced, she wasn't my sister. She was something else. Something that didn't belong to us. She belonged to the music, to the lights, to the people who paid to watch her move. I was proud of her. I was. But pride isn't simple when you're the one sitting in the audience. When you're the one who's always sitting in the audience. I went to college at the University of Washington. Pre-med. I lived at home to save money. My mother barely noticed I was there. She was too busy driving Sophie to rehearsals, ironing costumes, managing the schedule of a rising star. My father noticed. He'd sit with me at the kitchen table while I studied, grading his students' papers, asking me about my classes. He was the one who came to my undergraduate research presentations. He was the one who cried when I got into the physical therapy doctoral program at the University of Southern California. PT school, my mother said when I told her. Not medical school? I want to work with movement, I said. I want to help people recover. I want to see them get better. She nodded. She didn't understand. To her, physical therapy was what dancers did when they were injured. It was the place you went when you couldn't dance anymore. It was the end of something, not the beginning. But I didn't need her to understand. I was 22. I was moving to Los Angeles. I was starting my own life. The fall happened in my second year of PT school. I came home for spring break. Sophie was in the middle of a season. She was dancing the lead in Giselle, her first principal role. My mother was beside herself. She'd been calling me every week with updates. Sophie's doing double rehearsals. Sophie's lost 5 pounds. Sophie's being fitted for her costume. Sophie, Sophie, Sophie. I didn't mind. I was used to it. I got home on a Friday night. Sophie was at the studio. My mother was making dinner. My father was reading in his chair. It was normal. Familiar. The kind of ordinary that feels like home. Sophie came home late. She looked tired. Her face was pale. Her bun was loose, strands of hair sticking to her temples. She didn't say hello. She walked past me like I wasn't there. Sophie? I said. She stopped. She turned. For a moment, she looked at me like she didn't recognize me. Then she smiled. That smile. The one she used for people she didn't want to talk to. Lena. You're home. I'm home. That's nice. She walked up the stairs. She didn't look back. I told myself she was tired. Rehearsal was hard. Lead roles were demanding. She needed to rest. The next day, my mother asked me to come to the studio. Sophie was rehearsing. She wanted me to see her. To watch her dance. To be part of the world that had never been mine. I went. I sat in the empty theater, my mother beside me, and I watched Sophie dance. She was extraordinary. I knew she was extraordinary. I'd always known. But watching her that day, seeing her move across the stage like the floor was made of air, I understood something I'd never understood before. She wasn't just talented. She was possessed. Ballet wasn't something she did. It was something she was. She was rehearsing the mad scene. Giselle goes mad when she discovers her lover has betrayed her. She dances her way into death. It's one of the most demanding roles in ballet, physically, emotionally, everything. Sophie was deep in it. I could see it in her face. In the way her body twisted. In the way she fell to the floor and rose again, fell and rose. And then something happened. She was at the edge of the stage. There was a prop, a wooden bench that was supposed to be there for the next scene. It was in the wrong place. Too close to the edge. Sophie didn't see it. She was lost in the dance. She took a step back. Her foot hit the bench. She tried to catch herself. Her arms went out. Her body twisted. And she fell. Not off the stage. The stage was only 3 feet high. But she fell wrong. Her leg twisted under her. I heard the sound from the audience. A crack. The kind of sound that doesn't belong in a body. Sophie screamed. The sound cut through the theater. My mother screamed. The choreographer was running toward her. The pianist stopped playing. People were shouting. I was running before I knew I was moving. I jumped onto the stage. I pushed through the dancers who were crowding around her. I knelt beside her. Sophie was on her side. Her face was white. Her leg was bent at an angle that legs aren't supposed to bend at. Sophie, I said. Sophie, look at me. She was crying. Her breath was coming in gasps. She couldn't look at me. She was staring at her leg. Don't move, I said. Don't try to move. I need you to stay still. I reached for her leg. I could feel it before I saw it. The displacement. The instability. The joint was out. There was damage. I didn't know how much. Someone call 911, I said. Now. The paramedics came. They took her to the hospital. My mother went in the ambulance. My father and I followed in the car. He didn't say anything. He drove. He held the steering wheel with both hands. His knuckles were white. She's going to be okay, I said. It's probably a dislocation. Maybe a fracture. She'll need surgery, but She has a performance in 3 weeks, my father said. The lead. Her first lead. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? A performance didn't matter. What mattered was Sophie. What mattered was her leg. What mattered was whether she would ever dance again. We got to the hospital. We found my mother in the waiting room. She was crying. She was holding Sophie's bag, her sweater, the bouquet of flowers someone had given her after rehearsal. They're taking X-rays, she said. They said she'll need surgery. They said, she stopped. She looked at me. Her eyes were red. You were there. You saw. What happened? I don't know. She fell. The bench was in the wrong place. She didn't see it. The bench, my mother said. She's danced that scene 100 times. She knows where the bench is supposed to be. Someone must have moved it. I don't know who moved it. I just got here. I wasn't. I know you weren't there. You were in the audience. You saw what happened. I saw her fall. My mother nodded. She wiped her eyes. She sat down. She didn't say anything else. Sophie had surgery that night. I sat with my parents in the waiting room. My mother was silent. My father held her hand. At 2 a.m., the surgeon came out. He was tired. He'd been in the OR for 4 hours. She has a tibial plateau fracture, he said. The joint surface is damaged. We've put plates and screws in to stabilize it. But this is a serious injury. It's going to take months to heal. And there's no guarantee she'll regain full range of motion. My mother started crying again. She's a dancer. She's a professional dancer. She's supposed to dance Giselle in 3 weeks. The surgeon looked at her. His face was kind. He'd had this conversation before. She won't be dancing Giselle, he said. She won't be dancing anything for at least 6 months. And even then, he stopped. We'll do everything we can. But she needs to prepare for the possibility that she may not return to her previous level. My mother made a sound I'd never heard before. Something that came from deep in her chest. Something that sounded like a building collapsing. We saw Sophie the next morning. She was in a hospital bed, her leg elevated, a metal frame holding it in place. She was pale. Her eyes were empty. She looked like someone who had already decided something. Sophie, my mother said. She went to the bed. She took Sophie's hand. You're going to be okay. The doctor said. He said I might never dance again, Sophie said. Her voice was flat. I heard him. I was awake. I heard everything. You're young. You're strong. You'll. Don't, Sophie said. She pulled her hand away. Don't tell me it's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay. My career is over. My life is over. My mother started crying. My father stood by the door, silent. I was standing in the corner. I didn't know what to say. I was a PT student. I knew the injury. I knew the recovery. I knew that with the right rehabilitation, with time and work, Sophie might get back. But I also knew that might wasn't something Sophie had ever lived with. Sophie was the best. Sophie was the star. Sophie didn't do might. I should have said something. I should have gone to her. I should have told her that I would help her, that I knew how to fix this, that I'd spent my whole life learning how to put people back together. But I didn't. Because Sophie didn't want me. Sophie had never wanted me. And in that moment, I was afraid that if I spoke, she would push me away like she'd pushed everyone else. So I stayed in the corner. I stayed quiet. And that silence became evidence. The accusation came 3 days later. I was at the house, packing to go back to LA. My mother came into my room. Her face was strange. Hard. Not the face I knew. Sophie told us what happened, she said. I turned from my suitcase. What do you mean? She told us how she fell. She told us who moved the bench. I stared at her. No one moved the bench. It was in the wrong place. Someone must have moved it during the rehearsal before. I don't know who. It was you. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. What? You were at the studio the day before. You came to watch her rehearse. You told me you were going to meet a friend, but you didn't. You went to the stage. You moved the bench. Sophie saw you. That's not true. I wasn't. She saw you, Lena. She told us. She said you moved it to the edge. You wanted her to fall. You've always been jealous of her. You've always wanted to be the one people noticed. I felt something crack inside me. Something I didn't know could crack. Mom, listen to me. I didn't move anything. I was never on that stage. I was in the audience the whole time. Ask anyone. Ask the choreographer. Ask the pianist. Ask. I asked Sophie, my mother said. She's the one who was there. She's the one who saw you. I looked at my mother. I looked at her face, her hard, strange face, and I realized something. She didn't want the truth. She wanted someone to blame. She wanted someone to punish. She wanted a reason for what had happened to Sophie, a reason that wasn't random, that wasn't cruel, that wasn't just bad luck. And I was the one who was there. I was the one who'd always been there, in the background, watching, waiting, wanting. Mom, please, I said. You have to believe me. I would never hurt Sophie. I would never. Your father and I have talked, she said. We think it's best if you don't come home for a while. Sophie needs to focus on her recovery. She can't be around someone who, she stopped. She didn't finish the sentence. I sat down on my bed. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. I didn't do it, I said. I didn't do anything. My mother looked at me. Her eyes were cold. Sophie says you did. And Sophie has never lied to us. That was the last conversation I had with my mother for 3 years. I went back to LA. I finished my PT program. I graduated at the top of my class. I applied for residencies. I got into the spinal cord injury program at the Shepherd Center in Atlanta. I built a life. I made friends. I found work that mattered. I helped people learn to walk again, to move again, to live again. I was good at it. I was more than good. I was the kind of physical therapist that patients asked for by name. I didn't call home. I didn't write. My father called me once, 6 months after Sophie's injury. He sounded old. Tired. Your mother wants to know if you're okay, he said. I'm fine. She misses you. She doesn't believe me. He was quiet for a long moment. I know, he said. I know she doesn't. But she's your mother, Lena. She chose Sophie. She always chooses Sophie. And I can't, my voice broke. I can't be the one who apologizes for something I didn't do. I can't be the one who begs to be believed. I can't. He didn't say anything else. He said goodbye. He said he loved me. And then he hung up. I didn't hear from him again for 2 years. Sophie never danced again. I learned this from the internet. From articles about her injury. From blog posts about the ballerina who fell. From the announcement that she was leaving the company, that she was moving home, that she was starting a new chapter. The articles didn't mention me. I wasn't part of the story. I was the ghost in the background, the sister who didn't exist, the one who had been erased. Sophie's version of the fall became the official version. She told it to the company. She told it to the press. She told it to her friends. She told it so many times that she probably believed it herself. I moved to Atlanta. I started my career. I worked with patients who had been told they would never walk again. I helped them prove the doctors wrong. I helped them stand. I helped them take steps. I helped them find their way back to themselves. I was good at it. I was good because I understood what it meant to lose something. I understood what it meant to be told you would never move the way you used to move. I understood what it meant to have to rebuild yourself from nothing. I didn't think about Sophie. That's not true. I thought about her. I thought about the lie she told. I thought about the family I lost. I thought about the mother who believed her without question, the father who was too weak to fight. But I also thought about the girl who fell. The girl who lost everything. The girl who couldn't face the truth that she'd moved the bench herself. I learned this later, from a stagehand who saw her do it, that she'd been sleepwalking through rehearsals, exhausted, dehydrated, pushing herself too hard, and she'd moved it without thinking, and then she'd forgotten she'd moved it, and then she'd fallen. She didn't remember moving it. That's what the stagehand told me, years later. She didn't remember. She was so deep in the role, so lost in Giselle's madness, that she'd moved the bench herself and then forgotten she'd done it. And when she woke up in the hospital, when they told her she might never dance again, she couldn't face the truth. So she made up a new truth. One that didn't make her responsible. One that had a villain. One that had me. I understood that. I understood why she did it. But understanding didn't make it hurt less. The car accident happened on a Tuesday. I was in my office at the Shepherd Center, reviewing a patient's chart. A young man, 23, a college athlete who'd been in a diving accident. His parents were in the waiting room. I was going to tell them that their son had a 50% chance of walking again. 50%. That was the best I could give them. My pager went off. Level 1 trauma incoming. Multi-vehicle collision on the highway. Multiple patients. Activating the full team. I went to the emergency department. The trauma bay was chaos. Paramedics were wheeling in stretchers. Nurses were calling out vitals. Doctors were shouting orders. I stood at the edge of the room, waiting to be assigned. I was physical therapy, not trauma. But sometimes they needed me early, especially if there was spinal involvement. The charge nurse saw me. Dr. Park. We have a patient coming in. 34-year-old female. Rollover accident. Suspected spinal fracture. They're airlifting her from the scene. We'll need you on standby. I'll be here. I waited. I watched the paramedics work. I watched the doctor stabilize a young woman with a head laceration. I watched a man in a business suit get wheeled past, his arm wrapped in a temporary splint. And then the doors opened again. The paramedics were running. The stretcher was moving fast. The voice over the intercom called out the room assignment. Trauma Bay 3. Female, 34 years old. Multiple trauma. Suspected spinal injury. Possible paralysis. I walked toward Trauma Bay 3. I didn't know why. I was PT. I wasn't supposed to be in the trauma bay. But something pulled me. Something I couldn't name. I stood outside the bay. The curtains were drawn. I could see the shadow of the patient on the stretcher. I could hear the paramedic giving report. I could hear the doctor calling out orders. And then I heard a voice. A voice I hadn't heard in 8 years. Please, Sophie said. Please don't let me be paralyzed. Please. I can't lose my legs. I can't. I stood there. The hallway was loud. The trauma bay was loud. But all I could hear was her voice. My sister's voice. The sister who had lied about me. The sister who had cost me my family. The sister who was now lying on a stretcher, her spine broken, her legs possibly gone forever. I stood there for a long time. Then I walked away. I went back to my office. I closed the door. I sat at my desk. I looked at the chart of the young man with the diving injury. 50% chance. 50%. Sophie's chance was lower. I knew it without seeing the scans. I'd been doing this long enough to know. A rollover accident. Suspected spinal fracture. The way she said I can't lose my legs. She already knew. She already felt it. I sat there for 30 minutes. My hands were steady. My face was calm. But inside, something was happening. Something I didn't have a name for. The charge nurse knocked on my door. Dr. Park. I wanted to let you know, the patient from the accident, the spinal injury, she's being admitted to the spinal cord injury unit. She'll be on your floor. I know you're full, but we're short-staffed, and you're the best we have. Can you take her? I looked at the nurse. She didn't know. No one knew. In Atlanta, I was Dr. Lena Park. I was the physical therapist who could make people walk again. I wasn't the sister of a ballerina. I wasn't the daughter who'd been thrown away. I wasn't the villain in someone else's story. She's on my floor, I said. What's her name? The nurse looked at the chart. Sophie Park. No relation, I assume? I looked at the name. Sophie Park. My sister. My sister who had lied. My sister who had fallen. My sister who had lost everything and blamed me for it. Give me the chart, I said. I'll take the case. I didn't go to her room that night. I went home. I sat on my couch. I stared at the wall. I thought about what had happened 8 years ago. I thought about the bench. I thought about the fall. I thought about the lie. I thought about the stagehand. The one who had come to me, years later, at a conference in Seattle. He recognized my name. He found me during a break. He told me what he'd seen. I was setting up for the next rehearsal, he said. I saw her move the bench. She was doing the mad scene. She was moving things around like she was in a trance. I thought she knew what she was doing. I didn't think anything of it. And then she fell. And I didn't say anything. I was afraid. I didn't want to get involved. I didn't want to be the one who said the golden girl moved her own bench. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't call my mother. I didn't call Sophie. I didn't try to clear my name. What was the point? 8 years had passed. The lie had become truth. And I had built a life without them. But now Sophie was in my hospital. On my unit. In my care. And I had to decide what kind of person I was going to be. I walked into Sophie's room the next morning. She was in a hospital bed, her body immobilized, a halo brace holding her head and neck in place. There were monitors around her. Tubes. Machines. The things that keep people alive when their bodies have stopped working. Her face was thinner than I remembered. Her hair was shorter. Her eyes were the same. Dark. Intense. The eyes of a woman who had spent her whole life being looked at. She was staring at the ceiling. She didn't look at me when I walked in. Sophie, I said. She didn't respond. Sophie. It's Lena. She turned her head. Slowly. Carefully. Her neck was in the brace. She couldn't move much. But she turned enough to see me. Enough to recognize me. Her face changed. I saw it happen. Confusion first. Then recognition. Then something else. Something I didn't have a word for. Lena, she said. Her voice was hoarse. What are you? I work here. I'm a physical therapist. I specialize in spinal cord injury rehabilitation. You've been assigned to my unit. She stared at me. Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. You're a PT, she said. I'm a PT. I'm the director of the spinal cord injury program at this hospital. She was quiet for a long time. The monitors beeped. The floor dripped. The light through the window was gray and cold. They didn't tell me, she said. They didn't tell me you were here. They don't know. No one here knows we're related. I didn't tell them. She looked at me. Her eyes were wet. Why are you here? Why are you? Because you're my patient. And I'm the best person in this hospital to help you. That's the only reason. She closed her eyes. A tear ran down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. I didn't say anything. I stood beside her bed. I looked at her face, her thin, tired face, and I thought about everything that had happened. The bench. The lie. The 8 years of silence. The mother who chose her. The father who couldn't choose anyone. Your parents, I said. Are they coming? She nodded. Don't, I said. Don't do this now. Don't do this because you need something from me. I'm here to help you because it's my job. Because it's what I do. I'm not here to forgive you. I'm not here to make you feel better. I'm here to help you walk again. That's all. She nodded. She didn't say anything else. I left the room. Here's where I need to pause. Because what happened next, when my parents walked into that hospital room and saw me standing beside Sophie's bed, that's the moment 8 years of silence broke. And I need you to understand what that moment felt like. If you've ever been the one who was blamed for something you didn't do, the one who was thrown away, the one who had to rebuild yourself from nothing, type rebuilt in the comments. Let me know you understand. My parents arrived at the hospital at 8:47 p.m. I know the exact time because I was standing at the nurse's station, reviewing Sophie's chart, when I saw them walk off the elevator. My mother looked older than I remembered. 8 years had carved lines into her face that hadn't been there before. Her hair was gray now, not the soft gray that looks elegant, but the harsh gray of someone who has stopped caring about appearances. She was wearing a sweater that was too thin for the Atlanta winter. Her hands were wrapped around a purse she held like a shield. My father walked behind her. His shoulders were slumped. His hair was thinner. He was wearing the same jacket he'd worn for 20 years, the one with the torn lining that my mother kept meaning to fix. They didn't see me at first. They walked to the nurse's station, my mother leading, my father following. They asked for Sophie's room. The nurse pointed down the hall. And then my mother saw me. She stopped walking. Her hand went to her chest. Her face went pale. She looked at me like she'd seen a ghost. In a way, I suppose she had. I was the daughter she'd buried. The daughter she'd chosen to forget. "Lena," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Hello, Mom." My father stepped forward. He looked at me. His eyes were wet. He didn't say anything. He never said anything. "What are you doing here?" my mother asked. Her voice was sharp now. The shock was wearing off. Something harder was taking its place. "I work here. I'm the director of the spinal cord injury rehabilitation program. Sophie has been assigned to my unit." My mother stared at me. Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. "You're a physical therapist," she said. "I'm a physical therapist. I've been one for 6 years." She looked at my father. He didn't meet her eyes. He was looking at me. Just looking. Like he was trying to memorize my face. "She didn't tell us," my mother said. "Sophie didn't tell us you were here. She didn't know. We haven't spoken in 8 years. Remember?" The words landed like stones. I saw my mother flinch. I saw her grip tighten on her purse. I saw something flicker in her eyes, something that might have been guilt, or might have been anger, or might have been something else entirely. "We need to see Sophie," she said. "We came to see Sophie. She's in room 412. I was just there. She's stable. Her vitals are good. The spinal injury is incomplete, which means—" "I didn't ask for a report," my mother said. "I asked to see my daughter." I looked at her. At the woman who had raised me. At the woman who had believed a lie without question. At the woman who had thrown me away and never once looked back. "She's your daughter," I said. "I know. Go see her." I stepped aside. My mother walked past me without looking back. My father paused. He put his hand on my arm. Just for a moment. Just long enough for me to feel the warmth of his fingers. "I'm glad you're here," he said quietly. "I'm glad you're the one who's going to help her." Then he followed my mother down the hall. I stood at the nurse's station. I watched them walk into Sophie's room. I watched the door close behind them. And I stood there for a long time, not moving, not speaking, just breathing. Because that's what I'd learned to do. Breathe. Wait. See what happens next. I didn't go into Sophie's room that night. I gave them time. I gave them space. I went back to my office and sat at my desk and stared at the wall. The wall was gray. Institutional gray. The kind of gray that doesn't ask questions. The kind of gray that just absorbs whatever you put in front of it. I thought about my mother's face when she saw me. The shock. The hardness. The way she'd said I didn't ask for a report, like I was a stranger. Like I was someone she didn't know. Like I was someone she didn't want to know. I thought about my father's hand on my arm. The warmth of his fingers. The way he'd said, "I'm glad you're here." The way he'd looked at me like he was seeing something he'd been missing for 8 years. I thought about Sophie. About the way she'd said I'm sorry in that flat, tired voice. About the way she'd closed her eyes when I told her I wasn't there to forgive her. And I thought about the stagehand. The one who had seen her move the bench. The one who had come to me at that conference, years ago, to tell me the truth. I didn't say anything, he'd told me. I was afraid. I was 22 years old. I didn't want to be the one who ruined her career. I didn't want to be the one who said she did it to herself. I'd thanked him. I told him it didn't matter. And I'd meant it. Because by then, it didn't. I had my life. I had my career. I had my patience. I didn't need the truth to be known. I just needed it to be true. But now, standing in that hospital, watching my parents walk into Sophie's room, I realized something. The truth did matter. Not because it would change anything. Not because it would bring back the 8 years I'd lost. But because I deserved to have it said out loud. I deserved to be seen. I deserved to be believed. And I was the only one who could say it. I went to Sophie's room the next morning. My parents were there. My mother was sitting in the chair beside Sophie's bed, holding her hand. My father was standing by the window, looking out at the gray Atlanta sky. They looked up when I walked in. My mother's face tightened. My father's shoulders straightened. Sophie looked at me. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying. I need to talk to you about Sophie's treatment plan, I said. My voice was professional. Calm. The voice I used with families. The voice that kept me from feeling anything. My mother opened her mouth to speak. I held up my hand. Before we start, there's something you need to know. Something that happened 8 years ago. Something that none of you have ever heard. Lena, Sophie started. I looked at her. You're going to listen. You're going to listen because you owe me that much. And then I'm going to tell you what needs to happen next. But first, you need to hear the truth. My mother stood up. This isn't the time. Sophie just had surgery. She's... Sit down, Mom. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Something in my face must have told her that I wasn't going to be dismissed. She sat down. I took a breath. I looked at Sophie. At my sister. At the woman who had taken everything from me and given me nothing in return. I didn't move the bench, I said. I never moved the bench. I was never on that stage. I was in the audience. I saw Sophie fall. I ran to help her. I was the one who called 911. I was the one who stayed with her until the paramedics came. My mother's face was pale. Sophie said. Sophie lied. She lied because she couldn't face the truth. And the truth is, she moved the bench herself. She was exhausted. She was dehydrated. She was deep in the mad scene, and she moved it without thinking, and then she forgot she'd moved it, and then she fell. Sophie made a sound. Something between a gasp and a sob. That's not true, my mother said. She wouldn't. There was a stagehand, I said. His name was Marcus. He saw Sophie move the bench. He didn't say anything at the time because he was young and scared and he didn't want to get involved. But he found me 5 years ago at a conference in Seattle. He told me what he saw. He told me because he'd been carrying it for 5 years and he couldn't carry it anymore. I pulled out my phone. I opened the email I'd saved. The one Marcus had sent me after our conversation. The one where he'd written down everything he remembered. The date. The time. The position of the bench. Sophie's face as she moved it. The way she'd walked to the edge of the stage like she was sleepwalking. I handed the phone to my mother. Read it. She read it. Her face changed as she read. The color drained from her cheeks. Her hands started to shake. When she finished, she looked at Sophie. Her eyes were wide. Her mouth was open. "Sophie," she said. "Sophie, is this true?" Sophie didn't answer. She was crying now. Not quiet tears. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep. Somewhere that's been locked for a very long time. "Sophie," my mother said again. "Answer me." "Yes," Sophie whispered. "It's true." I moved it. I didn't remember. I swear to God, I didn't remember. I woke up in the hospital and I didn't remember moving it. And when they asked me what happened, I didn't know. I didn't know what to say. And then, she stopped. She was gasping. And then Lena was there. And she was the one who was always in the background. And it was so easy to blame me, I said. Because I was already invisible. Because no one would believe me anyway. Because I was the one who didn't matter. That's not. Sophie tried to sit up. The monitors beeped. The pain stopped her. She fell back against the pillows. That's not why. I was scared. I was so scared. And you were there. And I thought if I told them you did it, they wouldn't be so angry at me. They wouldn't be so disappointed. They'd blame you instead. My mother was crying now. Tears running down her face. She looked at Sophie. She looked at me. She looked at the phone in her hands. "We blamed you," she said. "All these years. We blamed you." "You did," I said. I didn't know. I believed her. I believed her because she was the one who mattered. She was always the one who mattered. My mother stood up. She reached for me. I stepped back. "Don't," I said. "Don't touch me. Don't try to fix this. You can't fix this. You can't get back 8 years. You can't unbelieve a lie. You can't give me back the family I lost." "I'm sorry," she said. "Lena, I'm so sorry." I looked at her. At this woman who had given birth to me. At this woman who had chosen one daughter over another. At this woman who was crying now, finally crying, for the daughter she'd thrown away. "I'm not here for your apology," I said. "I'm here to do my job. Sophie has a spinal cord injury. She needs intensive rehabilitation. She needs to work harder than she's ever worked in her life. And I'm going to help her do that. Not because she's my sister. Not because you're my mother. Because it's what I do. Because I'm good at it. Because I've spent 8 years learning how to help people walk again." I looked at Sophie. "Are you ready to work?" She was still crying. But she nodded. "Yes." "Then we start tomorrow. 8 a.m. Physical therapy suite. I'll have a wheelchair waiting. And I need you to understand something. This is going to be hard. Harder than anything you've ever done. Harder than ballet. Harder than Giselle. Harder than lying to everyone who loved you. I'm going to push you. I'm going to make you cry. I'm going to make you want to give up. And you're not going to give up. Do you understand?" "I understand." "Good." I turned to leave. I stopped at the door. I looked at my father. He hadn't said a word. He was standing by the window, his back to the room, his shoulders shaking. "Dad," I said. He turned around. His face was wet. He looked at me. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. "I knew," he said. His voice was cracked. "I always knew." I stared at him. "What?" "I knew you didn't do it. I knew Sophie moved the bench. I saw her do it." The room went silent. The monitors beeped. The floor dripped. My mother was frozen. Sophie was frozen. I was frozen. "You saw her," I said. "You saw her move the bench." I was in the back of the theater. I'd come to watch her rehearse. I saw her move it. She was in the mad scene. She was moving things around. I didn't think anything of it. I thought she was supposed to be moving it. I didn't know, his voice broke. I didn't know she was going to fall. I didn't know she was going to hurt herself. And then she fell. And she said you did it. And you let them blame me, I said. My voice was quiet. You knew the truth. And you let them blame me. I didn't know what to do. Your mother, she was so angry. She needed someone to blame. And Sophie was in the hospital. She was broken. She was never going to dance again. And I thought if I said something, it would make everything worse. It would tear the family apart. It would. It did tear the family apart, I said. It tore me away. I lost my family because you were too weak to tell the truth. He didn't answer. He couldn't. He was crying. His whole body was shaking. I looked at him. At my father. The man who had sat with me at the kitchen table while I studied. The man who had come to my research presentations. The man who had said Lena's going to be a doctor. She's the smart one. The man who had let me disappear because he was afraid. 8 years, I said. 8 years you let me believe I was alone. 8 years you let me think no one believed me. And all that time, you knew. I'm sorry, he said. Lena, I'm sorry. I looked at him. I looked at my mother. I looked at Sophie. I'm not here for your apologies, I said. I'm here to do my job. Tomorrow. 8 a.m. Be ready. I walked out. I didn't look back. I went home that night and sat on my couch and didn't move for 3 hours. My cat, a gray tabby named Machi, sat on my lap. She didn't ask questions. She didn't apologize. She just purred. I thought about my father. About the words he'd said. I knew. I always knew. 8 years. 8 years he'd carried that secret. 8 years he'd watched my mother believe a lie. 8 years he'd let me disappear. I thought about the kitchen table. About the way he'd sit with me while I studied. About the way he'd ask about my classes. About the way he'd told me I was going to be a doctor. He loved me. I knew he loved me. But his love wasn't enough. It was never enough. Because when it mattered, when I needed him to stand up and tell the truth, he didn't. He stayed quiet. He let them blame me. He let me go. I don't know when I stopped crying. I don't know when I fell asleep. I woke up on the couch at 5 a.m., Machi still on my lap, my face wet, my eyes swollen. I had a job to do. I had a patient to see. I had a sister to help. I got up. I showered. I put on my scrubs. I went to work. Sophie was waiting when I walked into the physical therapy suite at 8 a.m. She was in a wheelchair. Her hair was pulled back. Her face was pale. She looked terrified. My mother was standing behind her. My father was by the door. They both looked like they hadn't slept. I didn't acknowledge them. I walked to Sophie's chair. I crouched down so I was at eye level with her. Today is going to be hard, I said. You're going to try to move things that don't want to move. You're going to feel pain. You're going to feel frustration. You're going to want to give up. I'm not going to let you. Do you understand? She nodded. We're going to start with your upper body. Your arms. Your shoulders. Your core. You need to build strength. You need to learn to support yourself. Without that, nothing else matters. Ready? She took a breath. Ready. I stood up. I moved behind her chair. I unlocked the wheels. Let's go. The first week was brutal. Sophie's upper body strength was gone. 8 years without dancing, without training, without the constant work that had defined her body. She was weak. Her shoulders trembled when she tried to push herself up. Her arms shook when she tried to hold herself steady. She cried. Every day. Sometimes from frustration. Sometimes from pain. Sometimes from exhaustion. I didn't stop her. Crying was part of it. Crying meant she was still fighting. My parents were there. Every day. My mother sat in the corner of the PT suite, watching. My father stood by the door. They didn't speak to me. I didn't speak to them. On the third day, Sophie collapsed during a transfer exercise. She was trying to move from the wheelchair to a mat. She lost her grip. She fell. I caught her before she hit the floor. Let go, she said. Just let me fall. No. I can't do this. I can't. I'm never going to walk again. You know it. I know it. Everyone knows it. I held her. She was shaking. Her whole body was shaking. I've seen people with worse injuries walk again, I said. I've seen people with complete injuries learn to live full lives. You have an incomplete injury. You have sensation. You have movement. You have a chance. But you have to work for it. You have to want it. I don't want it, she said. I want to go back to before. I want to dance again. I want to be on stage. I want to be Sophie the ballerina. I don't want to be Sophie in a wheelchair. I don't want to be Sophie who can't walk. I don't want to be this person. I looked at her. At my sister. At the woman who had taken everything from me. You don't get to go back, I said. None of us get to go back. You can't undo what you did. You can't undo what happened to you. You can't undo the lie. You can only move forward. And if you don't want to move forward, if you don't want to try, then I'm wasting my time. I have other patients. Patients who want to get better. Patients who are willing to fight. She looked at me. Her eyes were red. Her face was wet. But there was something in her expression that hadn't been there before. Something that looked like determination. I want to try, she said. I want to try again. Then let's try again. I helped her back into the wheelchair. We started over. By the end of the second week, Sophie could support herself with her arms for 30 seconds. By the end of the third week, she could transfer from the wheelchair to the mat without help. By the end of the fourth week, she could sit on the edge of the mat without holding on to anything. She was working. Harder than I'd ever seen anyone work. Harder than she'd worked for Giselle. Harder than she'd worked for anything in her life. My mother started bringing coffee. For Sophie. For me. She'd leave a cup on the counter in the PT suite, next to my clipboard. She never said anything. She just left it there. I drank the coffee. I didn't thank her. I didn't know how. My father started staying in the PT suite instead of waiting by the door. He'd sit in the corner. He'd watch. Sometimes he'd ask questions. How does that exercise work? What are those muscles called? How long until she can try standing? I answered his questions. I kept my voice professional. I didn't let him see that it hurt to have him there. That it hurt to have him ask questions now, when he'd been silent for 8 years. Sophie and I didn't talk about the past. We talked about the present. About her exercises. About her progress. About the goals she was working toward. But sometimes, in the quiet moments between exercises, she'd say something. Something small. Something that felt like an opening. I remember the science fair, she said one day. The one you won. I was so jealous. I looked at her. She was sitting on the mat, her legs stretched out in front of her, her hands flat on the surface, holding herself up. Jealous of a science fair? You got a ribbon. Mom and Dad didn't come. They came to my recital. I remember thinking, she did that without them. She did it alone. I could never do anything alone. You did plenty alone, I said. You danced. You performed. You were on stage by yourself. That's not alone. That's with people watching. That's with people looking at you. That's the opposite of alone. She looked at me. You were alone. When they didn't come to your science fair. When they didn't notice you. You were alone, and you didn't need anyone. I was always surrounded by people, and I needed everyone. I didn't know what to say. I'd never thought of it that way. I'd always seen Sophie as the one who had everything. The attention. The love. The spotlight. I'd never seen her as someone who was afraid of being alone. I'm sorry, she said. For what I did. For lying. For blaming you. For letting them throw you away. I'm sorry. I looked at her. At my sister. At the woman who had hurt me more than anyone else in my life. I know, I said. Now let's work on your legs. By the 6th week, Sophie could stand. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't the way she'd stood on stage, poised and perfect. It was shaking. It was uncertain. It was the kind of standing that comes after weeks of work, after hours of pain, after days when she wanted to give up and didn't. She stood at the parallel bars. Her hands were gripping the bars. Her legs were trembling. Her face was red with effort. My mother was crying. My father was holding her hand. I was standing in front of Sophie, watching her, ready to catch her if she fell. One step, I said. Just one step. She looked at me. Her eyes were wild. She was scared. I can't. You can. One step. That's all. She took a breath. She shifted her weight to her right leg. She lifted her left foot. It moved an inch. 2 inches. She set it down. Her leg buckled. She started to fall. I caught her. I held her up. That was a step, I said. She was crying. It wasn't a step. I fell. It was a step. You lifted your foot. You moved it forward. You put it down. That's a step. Tomorrow you'll take 2. Next week you'll take 3. And in a month, you'll walk across this room. She looked at me. Her face was wet. Her hands were shaking. How do you know? She asked. How do you know I can do this? I looked at her. At my sister. At the woman who had taken everything from me. Because I've seen people with worse injuries walk again. Because I've seen people with no hope find it. Because you're my sister. And I'm not going to let you stop. Here's where I need to pause again. Because the next part of this story, the part where Sophie walked, where my mother finally said what she'd been holding for 8 years, where my father found the courage to speak, that's the part that changed everything. If you've ever had to be the one who held someone up when no one held you, type held in the comments. Let me know you understand. The day Sophie walked across the room was the day everything changed. Not just for her. For all of us. For my mother, who had spent 8 years carrying a truth she couldn't face. For my father, who had spent 8 years carrying a truth he was too afraid to speak. For Sophie, who had spent 8 years carrying a lie that had cost her everything. And for me, who had spent 8 years carrying nothing at all because I had been emptied out and left to fill myself back up alone. It was the 10th week of her rehabilitation. 10 weeks of exercises. 10 weeks of tears. 10 weeks of falling and getting back up. 10 weeks of my mother's coffee cups left on the counter. 10 weeks of my father's quiet questions. 10 weeks of Sophie working harder than she had ever worked for anything, including Giselle, including the career she had given her whole life to. I had seen this moment before. Dozens of times. I had stood at the end of the parallel bars and watched patients take their first steps after months of not walking. I had seen the fear in their eyes. The hope. The disbelief when their legs held. I had seen it before. But I had never seen it like this. The morning started like any other. Sophie was waiting in the PT suite when I walked in. She was in her wheelchair, her hands folded in her lap, her face set in the expression I had come to recognize. Determination. Fear. The quiet refusal to give up. My mother was in her usual corner. She had a coffee cup in her hands, one for me, one for her, one for Sophie. She didn't offer them anymore. She just set them down. It was our ritual. My father was standing by the door. He had started coming earlier, staying later. He had started asking more questions. Not just about Sophie. About me. About my work. About the patients I had helped. About the life I had built. I didn't know how to answer his questions. I didn't know how to let him in. He had been silent for 8 years. His silence had cost me my family. And now he wanted to know about my life? Now he wanted to be part of it? I wasn't ready. I didn't know if I would ever be ready. But I answered his questions. I told him about my patients. I told him about the woman with the spinal cord injury who had walked her daughter down the aisle. I told him about the young man with the diving accident who had run a marathon. I told him about the work I did, the work that mattered, the work that had saved me when nothing else could. He listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't apologize. He just listened. And somehow, that was enough. We're trying something different today, I said to Sophie. She looked up at me. Different how? I want you to walk. She stared at me. I can't walk. I've been doing transfers for weeks. I've been standing for weeks. I've been taking 2 steps at the parallel bars. I can't. You can. You've been ready for 2 weeks. You've been too scared to try. Her face flushed. I'm not scared. Yes, you are. And that's okay. Being scared is part of it. But you can't let being scared stop you. You've been letting fear stop you your whole life. The fear of not being good enough. The fear of being alone. The fear of failing. And that fear made you do things you regret. It made you lie. It made you blame me. It made you run away from the truth. She was quiet. Her hands were gripping the arms of her wheelchair. I'm not going to let you run away anymore, I said. Today, you walk. Not 2 steps. Across the room. From the bars to the door. She looked at the door. It was 20 feet away. 20 feet of empty space. 20 feet of floor that she hadn't walked on in 10 weeks. I can't, she whispered. You can. And I'm going to be there. I'm going to walk with you. I'm not going to let you fall. She looked at me. Her eyes were wet. Why are you doing this? After everything I did. After everything I took from you. Why are you the one helping me? I crouched down beside her wheelchair. I looked at her face. The face that was the same as mine. The same cheekbones. The same jaw. The same shape of the eyes. Because I'm your sister, I said. Because I've spent 8 years being angry at you. Because I've spent 8 years wishing you would tell the truth. Because I've spent 8 years waiting for someone to say they were sorry. And I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of being angry. I'm tired of carrying something that doesn't belong to me anymore. She started to cry. Not the quiet tears she cried during exercises. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep. Somewhere that has been locked for a very long time. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean, I never meant. I know, I said. I know you didn't mean to hurt me. I know you were scared. I know you were broken. I know you didn't know how to carry what happened to you. I understand. I've always understood. But I needed you to say it. I needed you to say it out loud. I'm sorry, she said again. I'm sorry, Lena. I'm sorry for the lie. I'm sorry for blaming you. I'm sorry for letting them throw you away. I'm sorry for every day I didn't tell the truth. I'm sorry for every day I let you be alone. I took her hand. Her fingers were cold. They were shaking. Now walk, I said. I helped her out of the wheelchair. I helped her stand. She was shaking. Her legs were trembling. Her hands were gripping my arms. Let go, she said. What? Let go of me. I need to do this myself. I looked at her. At her face. At the fear in her eyes. At the determination underneath. If I let go, you might fall. Then I'll fall. And I'll get back up. But I need to do it myself. I let go. She stood there for a moment. Her arms were out. Her legs were shaking. She looked like a child learning to walk for the first time. I thought about my father. About the 8 years of silence. About the truth he had carried. About the fear that had kept him quiet. About the love that was underneath it all. I thought about forgiveness. About what it meant. About what it cost. About whether I was ready to give it. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure I would ever be sure. But I knew something. I knew that carrying the anger was heavier than letting it go. I knew that holding on to the pain was keeping me from something I wanted. I knew that I had spent 8 years building a life without them, and that life was good. But it was missing something. Something I hadn't let myself name. I wanted them back. Not the way they were. Not the way things were before. I didn't want to go back. I wanted to go forward. I wanted to build something new. Something that wasn't built on the lie. Something that was built on the truth. And the truth was, they had hurt me. They had hurt me in ways I didn't know how to fix. But they were also my family. And I was tired of being alone. I went to the hospital the next morning. Sophie was in the PT suite. She was sitting on the mat, doing her exercises. She was alone. Where's Mom? I asked. She's in the cafeteria. Dad's with her. Sophie looked at me. She's not sleeping. She's been up all night. She's worried about you. About me? She thinks you're going to leave. After yesterday. After she saw you walk away. She thinks you're going to go back to your apartment and never come back. I sat down on the mat beside her. I'm not going anywhere. She's scared. She's been scared for 8 years. She just didn't know how to show it. I didn't say anything. I watched Sophie do her exercises. Her arms were strong now. Her shoulders were steady. She had changed in the 10 weeks she'd been here. Not just physically. Something else. Something deeper. You were right, she said. About the fear. I've been afraid my whole life. Afraid of not being good enough. Afraid of being invisible. Afraid that if I stopped being the best, no one would want me. And that fear made me do terrible things. It made me lie. It made me blame you. It made me push everyone away. You didn't push everyone away. Mom stayed. Dad stayed. Mom stayed because she couldn't let go of what I was supposed to be. She stayed because she was afraid of losing the daughter who was going to be everything she wasn't. And Dad stayed because he was too afraid to leave. That's not the same as being wanted. That's not the same as being loved. I looked at her. At my sister. At the woman who had always seemed to have everything. You thought no one would want you if you weren't dancing, I said. She nodded. And then I couldn't dance. And I was right. I wasn't the person I was supposed to be. I wasn't anything. And I couldn't face that. So I made you into the person who took it from me. Because it was easier to hate you than to hate myself. She was crying. Quietly. The way she cried during exercises. The way she cried when she thought no one was watching. I don't hate you, I said. You should. I don't. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm still trying to figure out what to do with all of it. But I don't hate you. I never hated you. I hated what you did. I hated that no one believed me. I hated that I lost my family. But I never hated you. She looked at me. Her face was wet. Her eyes were red. Why not? Because you're my sister. Because I remember the girl who used to carry me on her shoulders. Because I remember the way you'd sneak me candy when mom wasn't looking. Because I remember the way you'd watch me at the science fair, even though you didn't understand what I was doing. Because you were the one who taught me that being invisible wasn't the worst thing. Being forgotten was. She started to cry. Hard. The way she'd cried when she fell. The way she'd cried when they told her she might never dance again. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to forget you. I didn't mean to make you invisible. I didn't mean. I know, I said. I know. I put my arm around her. She leaned into me. She put her head on my shoulder. We sat there on the mat, in the middle of the PT suite, and we cried. My mother found us like that. She came back from the cafeteria. She stopped in the doorway. She saw Sophie crying. She saw me holding her. She didn't say anything. She walked into the room. She sat down on the other side of Sophie. She put her arm around both of us. My father came in behind her. He stood in the doorway for a moment. Then he walked to the mat. He sat down across from us. He looked at me. His eyes were wet. I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry I didn't speak. I'm sorry I let you go. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to tell the truth. I'm sorry I wasn't the father you deserved. I looked at him. At my father. The man who had sat with me at the kitchen table. The man who had told me I was going to be a doctor. The man who had loved me but hadn't known how to fight for me. You were the one who believed in me, I said. You were the one who came to my presentations. You were the one who told me I was smart. You were the one who made me think I could be something. I should have done more. I should have. You should have told the truth. You should have said something. You should have been the one who stood up for me when no one else would. But you didn't. And I have to live with that. I have to live with the fact that you knew and you let them blame me anyway. He closed his eyes. He nodded. I know, he said. I know. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to earn back what I lost. If you'll let me. I looked at him. At this man who had been silent for 8 years. This man who was finally speaking. This man who was finally, after all this time, showing up. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said. I don't know if I can forgive any of you. Not yet. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to try if you are. My mother was crying. Sophie was crying. My father was crying. I was crying. We sat there on the mat, the 4 of us, in the middle of the PT suite, and we held each other. And for the first time in 8 years, I wasn't alone. Sophie's recovery took another 6 months. 6 months of exercises. 6 months of falls and setbacks and days when she wanted to give up. 6 months of my mother's coffee cups. 6 months of my father's questions. 6 months of walking beside her, not holding her, just being there. By the end, she could walk without a cane. She could climb stairs. She could carry groceries. She could do the things that people do when their bodies work the way they're supposed to. She couldn't dance. She would never dance again. That was something she had to accept. Something she had to grieve. Something she had to let go of. But she could walk. She could walk across a room. She could walk to the door. She could walk out of the hospital and into a life that wasn't what she planned, but was something. Something real. Something she had built with her own hands, her own legs, her own will. The day she was discharged, she walked out of the hospital on her own. No wheelchair. No cane. Just her legs. Just the legs that had been broken and rebuilt. Just the legs that had carried her through 10 months of hell. My parents were waiting by the car. My mother was crying. My father was holding her hand. Sophie walked to me. She stopped in front of me. She looked at me. "You saved my life," she said. "You saved your own life. I just helped." "You didn't just help. You were there. You were there when no one else was. You were there when I didn't deserve it. You were there when I had given you every reason to walk away." I looked at her. At my sister. At the woman who had taken everything from me and given me nothing in return. "You're my sister," I said. "That's what sisters do." She hugged me. She held me tight. I held her back. We stood there, in the parking lot of the hospital, and we held each other. And for the first time in 8 years, we were sisters. Not the sisters who competed. Not the sisters who lied. Not the sisters who blamed. Just sisters. Just two women who had been through hell and found each other on the other side. My mother and I didn't fix everything overnight. We couldn't. There was too much. Too many years. Too much silence. Too much hurt. But we started. We started with coffee. With the coffee cup she left on the counter. With the coffee cups I started leaving for her. With the ritual of sitting together, not saying much, just being in the same room. We started with questions. Small ones. What did you have for dinner? Did you sleep well? How was work? Questions that didn't ask for too much. Questions that gave us room to breathe. We started with the truth. With me telling her what it was like. What it was like to be blamed. What it was like to be thrown away. What it was like to build a life from nothing. What it was like to be alone. She listened. She didn't defend herself. She didn't make excuses. She listened. And she cried. And she said she was sorry. And she kept saying it. Until I told her she could stop. "I'm never going to stop being sorry," she said. "I'm never going to stop being sorry for what I did to you." For believing her. For not asking questions. For not looking for you. For letting you go. I looked at her. At my mother. The woman who had chosen Sophie. The woman who had thrown me away. "I know," I said. "I know you're sorry. And I believe you. But I need you to understand something. Being sorry isn't enough. You have to show me. You have to show me every day. You have to show me that you see me. That you want me. That I'm not the one who doesn't matter." She nodded. "I will. Every day. For the rest of my life." And she did. She didn't always get it right. She was still my mother. She still had her ways. But she tried. She tried every day. And that was enough. It was enough to start. My father and I took longer. I was angry at him. More angry than I was at my mother. Because he knew. He had known the truth, and he had let them blame me anyway. He had let me disappear. He had let me be alone. We talked about it. In the PT suite. In the coffee shop across from the hospital. In the car when he drove me home after late shifts. "Why didn't you say something?" I asked him. "Why did you let them blame me?" He was quiet for a long time. He looked out the window. He looked at his hands. He looked at me. Because I was afraid, he said. I was afraid of losing your mother. I was afraid of losing Sophie. I was afraid of what would happen if the truth came out. I was afraid of being the one who destroyed the family. You didn't destroy the family, I said. You let it be destroyed. You let me be destroyed. He closed his eyes. He nodded. I know, he said. I know. And I will never forgive myself for that. I will never forgive myself for being too afraid to stand up for you. For being too afraid to tell the truth. For being too afraid to be the father you deserved. I looked at him. At my father. The man who had believed in me. The man who had sat with me at the kitchen table. The man who had told me I was going to be a doctor. The man who had been too afraid to fight for me. I forgive you, I said. He looked at me. His eyes were wet. You don't have to, he said. You don't have to forgive me. I don't deserve. I know I don't have to. I'm choosing to. I'm choosing to forgive you because I don't want to carry this anymore. I'm choosing to forgive you because I want to have a father. I'm choosing to forgive you because you're the only one I have. He started to cry. He put his arms around me. He held me like he hadn't held me since I was a child. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry. I know, I said. I know. Sophie moved to Atlanta after her discharge. She got an apartment near the hospital. She started volunteering at the Shepherd Center, talking to patients who were where she had been. Helping them see that there was life after injury. That there was hope. She didn't dance. She couldn't. But she found other things. She started teaching. Not ballet. Movement. The kind of movement that anyone can do. The kind of movement that doesn't require perfect feet or perfect lines. Just a body. Just a willingness to try. She came to my apartment for dinner every Sunday. My mother came. My father came. We sat around my small table, in my small apartment, and we ate. We talked. We laughed. We cried. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the family I had wanted when I was a child. It wasn't the family that sat around the big table in the house in Seattle, with Sophie's photographs on the walls and my mother's ballet posters in the hallway. It was something else. Something smaller. Something messier. Something real. And it was enough. The last time I saw Sophie walk was at my wedding. I got married in the spring. A man named Daniel, a trauma surgeon I'd met at the hospital. He was kind. He was steady. He was the kind of person who stayed when things got hard. Sophie was my maid of honor. She walked down the aisle ahead of me. Not perfectly. Her gait was still uneven. She still had to think about each step. But she walked. She walked because she had spent a year learning how. She walked because she had refused to stop. She walked because she had something to prove. My mother was in the front row. She was crying. My father was beside her. He was crying too. I walked down the aisle on my own. I didn't need anyone to walk with me. I had walked alone for a long time. I had learned how. But when I reached the end, Sophie was there. She took my hand. She squeezed it. You did it, she said. You made it. We made it, I said. She smiled. She was crying. I was crying. We stood there, at the front of the room, holding hands, and we didn't let go. Here's what I've learned. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's not about pretending something didn't happen. It's not about letting people off the hook. It's about letting yourself off the hook. It's about choosing to stop carrying something that was never yours to carry. I didn't forgive my sister because she deserved it. I forgave her because I deserved to be free. I didn't forgive my mother because she earned it. I forgave her because I wanted to have a mother. I didn't forgive my father because he asked for it. I forgave him because I was tired of being angry. And I didn't help Sophie walk again because she was my sister. I helped her because I was a physical therapist. Because it was my job. Because I was good at it. Because I had spent 8 years learning how to help people rebuild their lives. But I also helped her because she was my sister. Because she was the girl who carried me on her shoulders. Because she was the girl who snuck me candy when mom wasn't looking. Because she was the girl who watched me at the science fair even though she didn't understand what I was doing. She was my sister. And I was her sister. And in the end, that was enough. My name is Dr. Lena Park. I'm a physical therapist. I specialize in spinal cord injury rehabilitation. I help people walk again. I help people rebuild their lives. I help people find their way back to themselves. And I know what it means to be the one who was blamed. I know what it means to be the one who was invisible. I know what it means to be the one who had to rebuild herself from nothing. But I also know what it means to be the one who forgives. To be the one who chooses love over anger. To be the one who holds out a hand and says, "Let's try again." If you've ever been the one who was blamed for something you didn't do, the one who was thrown away, the one who had to rebuild yourself from nothing, I see you. I know what you've been through. And I want you to know that you're not alone. You can walk. Not the way you used to. Not the way you thought you would. But you can walk. One step at a time. One day at a time. One choice at a time. And one day, you'll look back at how far you've come. And you'll see that you didn't just walk. You flew. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to be the one who held someone up when no one held you, leave a comment. Tell me your story. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. I have more stories to tell. And I want you to be here for them. My name is Dr. Lena Park. I help people walk again. And I know that the hardest steps are the ones you take toward yourself.